Hi guys. Okay, today's Silver Wolf chat's going to be a little bit different, and you're going to have to forgive me, but I got a major front line coming through with a lot of wind, and it's about 30-40 mile an hour gusts, so I got to do this real quick or else I ain't going to get it done today. So bear with me. For the Silver Wolves, I've been very pleased with the response on the videos we've done, and I've got a lot more videos planned to do for the Silver Wolves to talk about various things. And it's also an interaction where you give me your questions and I'll do my best to answer your concerns. And so recently I got a very nice discussion with a gentleman who was talking about going lighter, that he's got into his mid-60s and he just can't tote the gear he used to. And what recommendations and suggestions did I have for lightening your load and making it more compact and easy? Now, while we're talking, I'm going to be sharpening this D-guard Confederate buoy for Mr. Jason. Jason is the gentleman who owns the walker you see in a lot of my videos. He's kind enough to loan it to me, and he recently picked up this Confederate D-guard buoy. They call that a buoy. It's a short sword, and he wants me to sharpen it for him, so that's what we're doing with this. But back to the topic. Going lighter. If money was not a problem, you can absolutely go a lot lighter simply by going to the ultralight camping gear. Ultralight packs, ultralight bedrolls, ultralight, etc. And that is one route to consider. But if I might put my 2 cents worth in, it has been my experience that ultralight is usually ultra expensive and not ultra durable. I got into some of that quite a few years ago when I was still doing a lot of backpacking, and to be honest, most of the time it was adequate for the task, but most of your ultralight tarps are really, honestly, some form of plastic. Like Cuban fiber is actually some form of plastic. It's a fiber, yes, that they've spun and then made into a material, but at the same time it's a plastic. And what that means in English is, if you could blow it up and see down there close, when they go to sew the side of it to make a seam all the way around to put the finished edge on it, sorry about the aircraft, the needle is punching through that plastic. And think of it kind of like I don't know, like a garbage bag. Those holes will start to open up, or if they're burned in where it's a hot needle doing the holes, and I've seen such technology, the sewing thread gets cut by the tarp as it abrades that thread and it comes apart. So typically they don't last that long at the seams and they start coming apart. Once they start push, pull, flex, and etc., they're fantastic. Maybe it depends on your camping, how tough you are on your gear, how many windstorms it goes through, how many heavy downpours it goes through. But most people I know that have invested big money, and I invested some big money in some early tarps like that, only to find that they didn't hold up. One of the reasons I kept coming back over and over again to the military surplus stuff, because if this material was that uber, that impressive, that etc., why ain't the U.S. military using it to make ponchos or using it to make camping gear for their soldiers? They don't, because when they did their testing, they found it didn't hold up. This tarp right here behind me was a sil nylon tarp, military issue, that held up very, very well. But it weighed about, say, 2 pounds, the size of it, whenever you got said and done. So you need to systematically, for us old silver wolves, whenever you're trying to lower the weight, you can go that way and go get the various ultralight camping gears, the packs, etc. You're going to pay real money for it. Maybe you're more careful with your gear, and maybe you're not going to be camping that much, where you'll get several years of use out of it, and I hope you do. You know, for the investment, I hope you do. On the other hand, we can lower our weight by just being brutally honest with ourselves of what do you need. My mindset of this, if I'm going on a backpack trip right now at my age and my health, I would want to lower the weight as much as possible. So first question, how many days is it going to be? And then I have to allot how much food. Can I carry lighter food? Can I carry and eat ramen one meal a day and then have something more filling? Could I do with that? So that could cut down on a lot of my weight. But I gotta have that food, right? So I could streamline that. Second point, water. I'm gonna be carrying probably a Grail because I've got access to water all along the route, and therefore I would be able to filter water at any time and re-tank up. I don't have to carry a lot of water. This would not be true if I was going to Cheehaw, because Cheehaw does not have any water on the mountain except at the very tippy top. And so a lot of people go up there to hike Cheehaw, and it's a several mile hike from base to tip. And the only water is at the very top. So there is no water source to refill. And so that would change my mindset. I would have to carry water. You know, of course I'm going to be consuming that water, and so my pack weight will be dropping. But I will have to carry it. Once those 2 points are figured out, now I have to look at my comfort. Am I going to be in a hammock, or am I going to be ground pounding? Hammock means lighter, because by the time you add up the weight of a good ground pad to keep me off of the hard ground, and then the cover, sleeping bag, or whatever, and then usually a pillow of some kind, you can get a tarp and a hammock for the weight of that, usually. So I tend to go for hammocks because they're much lighter. Also in that term, I have smaller ultralight hammocks. I've got the One Wind Ultralight that I carry in my haversack, which is a 11-foot long hammock with a ridge line. You've seen it in all my videos. Perfectly capable of camping in it. I just don't have a mosquito net on it. But it is a little lighter build than my full-size camping hammock. So this is the size of the ultralight, and this is the size of the full-size camping hammock. It's just wider, but for my needs, could I go with the lighter one, the smaller one? Yes, I could get by with that. And then toting my hex cut sil nylon tarp, that would cover my overhead cover, place to sleep, and then if it's in the warmer time of the year, I would be carrying, and the temperature's not going to be very low, I'd carry just that fist size sleeping bag liner that I talked about as a top sheet just to cover me up. That's all I'm going to need. I'm a very warm sleeper, and so I actually prefer to sleep cool. So that would greatly reduce my weight and my bulk. So if I've got my food and my water, and I got my basic shelter of how to sleep, how to stay out of the rain, and how to stay warm at night, those right there. Add in a small flashlight, my knife, of course, for that, and a haversack, and that's it. That's all I'm going to really need. Typically, whenever we talk about, I see people who are going on big camp outs and they lay out all their gear. And you can tell if they're a knife nut because they got 4 knives with them. I carry a good, adequate field knife. Would I still be carrying my kukri? If I'm going to have to do firewood prep, yeah, I'm going to carry the kukri. If I could get away with just, and probably would be able to get away with it, being able to just pick up off the ground and snap it or go up to a tree and grab 2 ends and snap it and be able to do like that? Could I leave the kukri behind? Yes. Could I leave my big stitch gear sheath and WC Blackbird at home and carry a smaller, lighter knife? Yes, I could, if I was that concerned about the weight. My clothing, could I get away with some lighter gear there? Yes, as long as I recognize it's lighter and less durable. So don't be roughhousing it. Now, I know people that, good friends of mine, who carried ridiculously light packs. Stuart, who worked with me for several years, his pack was 8 pounds. But that sounds, oh my God, 8 pounds, what was he carrying? Stuart carried a single water bottle, like you get at the store. That was his entire water collection. A life straw. He carried the keychain size Swiss Army knife. He carried a small mesh hammock that wadded up about that big. He carried a very, very gossamer thin plastic tarp that was just barely big enough to go over that hammock. And I mean it just barely. He carried no cover beyond that. He carried two or three power bars, and that was it. Well, what Stuart's doing is he's a runner. And so he wanted to do 50 miles in 3 days. So he would get off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He would hit the trailhead Thursday night after work. He'd lay down and sleep, and he'd try to pick it where it was a full moon, and he's on relatively straight trails. And then he would get up at like 3 a.m. and start going down the trail because there was no traffic. See, everybody's in the area sleeping, and he could make time, and he could really push it. And he was hiking on very clear, established hiking trails. And oh, he had a real small little solar-powered flashlight unit that he could, during the day, put on top of his pack and it would recharge. Real expensive. Something came out of Germany. But he would travel as far as he could, trying to get 10 or 12 miles in, you know, by sunup, because he's going to run. He's a long distance runner. So he's going to run 5 miles, and then he's going to go to a walk. He's going to walk for 2 miles and breathe, and he's going to go back to running again. And so his goal was to do 20 to 25 miles the first day. Now when he gets to wherever he's spending the night, all he's going to do is literally just step off the trail, sling up his tarp, sling up his hammock. His ridge line was a little bitty piece of Dyneema that looked like a piece of fishing line. And he had a little sliding bead hook set he had on it, so he didn't have to tie a knot, he could just hook it. He would set it up. He's absolutely exhausted. He's going to be eating his little power bars as he goes down the trail at a walk. He's going to drink his water, and at every water source he's going to refill his water bottle. And he's going to just, out of exhaustion, collapse at point X, set up camp, and go to sleep. He's going to sleep a number of hours. He's going to get up maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning and take off again. You know. Well, his pride point was that he did 50 miles in 3 days, or he did it in 2 days. Well, that's running a 25-mile marathon, you know, a day. And then he would spend the next 3 months recovering, getting back in shape, and etc., and do it again. He wanted to do these big trails, do the entire trail, but you see what I'm saying? He didn't carry any weight. He had no safety, no backup, no nothing. He had to plan his campouts to coincide with full moons and to coincide with good weather, because blowing rainstorm, he's going to be soaked to the skin. He had no cover and nothing else. So a lot of people would go, 8 pounds, oh my God, I want to know what he was carrying. I want to carry just 8 pounds. See, it's one of those things that how much comfort do you want? And I don't mean to sound bad on anybody, I really don't, because I played this game too. But the thing to do is, where you can make a big change, can drop your weight down. Like, what am I eating? If I'm carrying cold stuff that doesn't require refrigeration, that I can just open up and eat, like Vienna sausage and crackers, things like that, where I don't have to have any cooking pot, any stove, nothing, I can just eat. That drops down in weight. I want to rock solidly have food for the amount of time. I want to have water for the amount of time. Carry some little powdered drink mix to drop into your canteen cup or however you're drinking, occasionally to change it from plain water so you got a little bit of a flavor. I want a way to sleep where I can be comfortable and sleep. I want a way to be covered where I'm not going to get wet or get, just etc. A tarp or something to cover me up. And some sort of cover so I'm not sleeping that cold. I can be cool, but I don't want to be cold. Anything else is comfort beyond that, other than carrying a knife, because I'm going to be building a small fire kit of some kind. So you can reduce your weight with the amount of comfort you're willing to do. If you're willing to be uncomfortable, you can do very little. Or if you're willing to spend a lot of time building it out of nature. They brag on how John Muir would go on 100-mile walks where he would just carry a small tin in his pocket with salt and a knife, and that was it. Well, he knew how to live off the land. He didn't need anything, and he was doing it in a place that was rampant with rock features and rock caves and shelters where he didn't have to build anything. He could just get into a overhang of rock, a rock house we used to call it, build a fire up against the thing and lay down and go to sleep. It was, how much comfort do you want? Nesmunk, of course, was what we really began to think of one of the first modern backpackers, which he didn't backpack, he canoed, but the way he carried his gear and went for lightness, if at all possible. And his canoes got lighter and lighter and lighter until he got, which one it was, I believe it was the Surrey Gamp, which was 11 pounds for a canoe. But if you'll notice, he only made one trip with that canoe, and that was it. As he said, I was about to find out how light a canoe it took to drown me. So even he was admitting that he had gone a little too far and had got to where something was just too light and wasn't that durable and reliable anymore. But he was in an area that, if you read, he's going to these lodges. This is kind of like being in a major camping area where there's hostels and places like that where you can get a meal and you can camp there in their campground. And so that's kind of like, when you read between the lines, what he was doing in a lot of that book, of paddling from campground to campground and setting up and spending the night. So he had a place he could grab something to eat, whatever. So he could carry very little gear because he had the amenities. See, don't get too hung up on how light you can go. Yes, it is a good idea to lay it out and see, can I go lighter? But at what point, when does it stop being comfortable? When does it stop being enjoyable and just become something you're having to endure? You can lighten your load, definitely. You can get lighter materials and lighter packs, definitely. How much durability? That's going to be a question. Most of us old Silver Wolves, we car camp now. Car camp, canoe camp, boat camp, ATV camp, whatever, because it's just more comfortable, it's more enjoyable. And isn't that why we're coming out here, is to enjoy it and maybe bring the grandkids out and teach them and let them see and enjoy it a little bit? Sorry about the aircraft, guys. I have lightened my pack quite a few times, and recently somebody was asking me what was my usual weekend pack. Weight. Well, the last time I weighed it, we were going to an overnight trip up on Duggar Mountain, and I was running just my rucksack. Okay? So for my tent, my sleeping bag, extra pair of socks, knife, food, grail, powder to make me up something in a cup to drink, and just a few other sundries, my entire pack came to 15 pounds. But again, I'm going to drive up on the car, I'm going to put my pack on, and I'm only walking a quarter mile, you know. But everything I had there covered my needs. I had the food I needed, I had a place to sleep that I would be comfortable in the weather conditions that were going to be prevalent. And so that's what I needed. So 15 to 18 pounds was more than up, and I was being a little luxurious then. That's not to brag on how light. It's I had pared down. Each of the individual items were not that light, so to speak, but there were so few items, see, because I didn't need much. The more you know up here, the less you carry. And a good friend of mine didn't like that statement. He says, I don't believe that. I said, okay, let me revise it. The more knowledge and experience you carry up here, the less BS you carry on your back, because you will find an item that will do multi jobs instead of just one, you know. And if I had to go super light, would I even leave my belt knife? Probably. I can carry my Swiss Army knife and do a lot of stuff. Fire, I'm going to pick it up at the ground. I got a saw on the Swiss Army knife if I need to notch and snap something a little bit bigger. I've got the knife I can do light bushcraft with that pocket knife. God knows I've got a little experience with a pocket knife. And so yeah, it's how much experience, how much time, and how comfortable you want to be. That's your limiting factors on how light you can go. I know this is a little bit rambling, but that's my honest opinion on it. Nothing but kudos for those guys like Stewart, 8-pound pack. He was happy. It's what he needed. At the same time, he didn't see a lot of the woods. He was busy running, you know. Stewart went one year and did the first 30 miles of the Appalachian Trail, southern going north. And I've done that part a couple of times. And when he got back from the trip and he was bragging about how fast his time was and how many miles he had made, and he'd got to this point and da-da-da, I asked him, I said, tell me about the tree. What tree? The big tree. He didn't know what I was talking about. Well, back in them days, and those of you that have hiked the Appalachian Trail, on the starting part of it, there's this particular place where you're coming up fairly steep, and the trail literally goes up to this great big huge tree, and you turn to go the other way. And that tree, you can't miss that tree, right? Stewart never noticed it. He never looked at the views. He never noticed anything. He's looking at the ground. He's making his time. You know, I told him, Stewart, if you want to break your personal record per day, you need to go hike Kansas. It's nice and flat. You can get 35 miles a day if you push hard. You can get 70 miles in a weekend if you do that. And he might do it. Because his thing is not to come out and enjoy the woods. His thing is to come out and see how many miles he can make. And it makes him happy. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.